Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 153 based on novel. So let's start. Guys, thanks for your help. We are going to have to deal with a human army later. Hua Yuhao said as he looked at the two huge powerful soul beasts in front of him. The Titan Snow Devil King nodded and said, "Since the Snow Empress said we should listen to you, we should follow her arrangement." The Ice Bear King nodded and said, "Yes, Grandpa. Whatever you want Little Bai to do, Little Bai will do." Grandpa? The Titan Snow Devil King's face contorted a little. It was not his first time hearing the Ice Bear King call Hua Yuhao that. Furthermore, the Ice Bear King even intentionally called Hua Yuhao that all the time. He was trying to show how close Hua Yuhao was with the Snow Empress. Hua Yuhao had tried to correct him a few times, but it was really difficult to stop someone with a one-track mind like him, so he eventually gave up and let him call him whatever he wanted. Hua Yuhao said, like this, Hua Yuhao started to plan out some arrangements. After going through the ultimate soldier plan, he was able to command a team of elite soldiers in a small-scale war even if he wasn't adept at commanding a huge army. Of course, the small scale here referred to the number of people involved, and not. Over the past half-month, the Sun Moon Empire's military base had been extremely busy. Ever since they set up their base, they had already started to take action in full swing. The initial investment naturally needed time. For example, there was the installment of all types of equipment, the detection of the detailed locations of all types of minerals and how to mine them, etc. It was only after mining all those minerals that they could talk about purification, collection, and transportation. After more than 10 days of building the foundation, the basic foundation was more or less up with the help of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion. After this, it was time to mine the minerals. 11 veins were discovered here. These veins intersected one another, and each had a different amount of reserves. However, all of them contained high-quality rare metals. Among them, the rare metals produced by 2 veins were of especially precious quality. Given such a situation, the entire mining process intensified. Furthermore, according to some research, among the 11 veins, 6 extended all the way into the Doling Empire. This also meant that they eventually led to the Doling Empire, where further rare metal veins could be discovered and controlled. After 10 days, the Sun Moon Empire's reinforcements arrived. This batch of reinforcements didn't have any fighting strength, but they were the best rare metal mining team in the Sun Moon Empire. There were more than 5,000 of them, and they brought a large number of machines with them. After arriving at the base, they immediately set up tents and settled down. The Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion and more than 20,000 soldiers coordinated with this professional team and expanded the scale of the foundations. At the same time, they started to mine. After half a month, a ceaseless flow of rare metals had already been mined, and they were being purified. 24 openings were dug to carry out the mining operations. No time was wasted at all. The Sun Moon Empire was very aware that the 3 empires of the original Dolor continent would also try to obtain more and more rare metals as soul tools became more relevant in the war. If they knew that there were so many huge veins in the Heavenly Soul Empire, they would certainly risk everything to snatch these resources. This was why Juzi's first instruction was that they mustn't alarm those from the Doling Empire and allow them to find out what was going on. Second, they had to mine all the rare metals at the fastest possible speed. More than 3,000 storage-type soul tools were used to transport the large-scale machinery. Under normal circumstances, these machines were sufficient to mine more than 3 times the number of veins there currently were. The reason why so many of them were brought over was because the Sun Moon Empire wanted it to be as quick as possible. The entire mining operation was in full swing. Aerial surveillance soul tools were everywhere, to perform strict surveillance on the Doling Empire. Once anything was discovered, the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion would be able to react in the fastest possible time. Given the strength of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, they would be able to resist for a long time even if they met a 100,000-man army. Moreover, they even had the help of a 20,000-man army. There were many soul formations deployed on the ground. Large-scale soul tools had been fully constructed, and they were sufficient to deal with a long-running war. Juzi also instructed the Sun Moon Empire's army to send more reinforcements. It wasn't that she wasn't confident with the current reinforcements that they had, it was because Hui Yuhao had appeared. It had been half a month. She had been waiting for half a month, but Hui Yuhao hadn't shown up to cause any damage yet. Juzi immediately came with a conclusion. Hui Yuhao had indeed left this time. But what did his departure mean? It meant that he had gone to get more reinforcements. Not much time was needed to travel from the northeast of the Heavenly Soul Empire to Shrek Academy. When he returned, he might bring many powerful individuals from Shrek Academy with him. Juzi had deployed 2 Soul Engineer Legions for this reason. These 2 Soul Engineer Legions were watching Shrek Academy. Once Soul Masters from the Academy were deployed, they would be in charge of intercepting them. At the same time, the troops in the Heavenly Soul Empire were instructed to increase their pressure on the Heavenly Soul Empire. If the Sun Moon Empire knew that this series of arrangements were for one person, a lot of people would definitely be shocked. However, Juzi deeply believed that this was necessary. In her opinion, Hui Yuhao would only pose a bigger threat to them. At this moment, Juzi was gathering intelligence from all directions in the commander's tent. Compared to the 3 empires of the original Dolor continent, the Sun Moon Empire was very particular about surveillance and intelligence. Especially after Juzi became the marshal of the 3 armies, her first order was to expand the production line of aerial surveillance soul tools. More aerial surveillance soul tools had to be produced. At the same time, she requested more funding from Xu Tianran to expedite their research to high-altitude offensive soul tools. Occupying the sky was a very important component of intelligence gathering. At the same time, it was critical for the war. It was just that simple aerial soul tools were still ineffective in the battle for aerial supremacy compared to soul masters and soul engineers. Juzi sat in the commander's seat and looked at a report. She revealed a slightly doubtful look on her face and muttered, "What's going on? How can there be no movement at all?" Over at Shrek Academy, she wasn't able to deploy many aerial surveillance soul tools to carry out surveillance. However, she had already sent many scouts to observe the Academy's every move. Shrek Academy was very quiet over this period of time. She naturally knew that the Tang sect was mass-producing soul tools. Although she didn't know what they were actually producing, she wasn't very worried. The gap in expertise couldn't be closed in a day or 2. This was true even for Xian Ziwen. No matter how strong he was only one person. There were a batch of people who were as talented as Teacher Xian in the Sun Moon Empire. Moreover, in terms of resources, the Sun Moon Empire was also much stronger. Most importantly, whether it was the Tang sect or Shrek Academy, they didn't have enough time to close the gap. Yuhao, have you given up? No, I don't believe that you'll do that. That's not your character. You must be able to tell what we're trying to do. How can you possibly give up just like this? But where are you? Why is there no movement from Shrek Academy? Don't tell me you've gone to the Doling Empire? You wouldn't do that, given your intelligence. The main forces of the Doling Empire are with the remaining forces from the Heavenly Soul Empire, trying to resist our empire. You should know that they'll be outnumbered if we put more pressure on them. Since this is the case, where exactly are you? Is there something that's more important than stopping me? No, I don't think so. You must be doing something, and I'm sure you'll have something to show me. Unless... Her expression changed slightly. She wasn't willing to think beyond that. She also believed that it wouldn't happen. Given Yuhao's current abilities, there are very few who can harm him. Juzi mocked herself and was a little annoyed as she said, "When you left, I kept on worrying that you'd return. However, you haven't appeared for so long, and there's been no intelligence. I started to worry about your safety. I really suspect whether I'll be capable of being ruthless to you when I face you again. You know how much I don't want to lay my hands on you. If you can cooperate with me, that'd be really good. If that were the case, I'd be more confident of conquering this world. Where are you? I hope to have news of you. Otherwise, I might really go and find you if this continues." Juzi kept mumbling Hui Yuhao's name in the tent. However, She didn't know that he was not less than 10 kilometers away from her. Furthermore, he was in the air. If he wanted to, and if there wasn't any resistance, he could appear in front of her in less than 10 minutes. That was right. Hui Yuhao was in the air right now, and he was hiding in a ball of clouds. As he drifted in mid-air, Hui Yuhao silently observed the camp. The weather in the extreme north was very good today. More accurately speaking, the wind in the extreme north was very strong today. At a certain altitude, visibility was much greater than inland. It was very difficult to find a cloud like the one Hui Yuhao was hiding in. Furthermore, this cloud was moving at an extremely great speed. In the distance, many aerial surveillance SOL tools were being monitored by Hui Yuhao. These SOL tools were very scattered. In addition, they were all different types of surveillance SOL tools. There was an all-around surveillance SOL tool around 1,000 meters in the air. There was also an oscillation detector at an altitude of 500 meters. There were even thermal detectors at an altitude of 200 meters. These aerial surveillance SOL tools were very scattered. Undoubtedly, they had learned from the previous lesson when Hui Yuhao had destroyed many of them at once. There were more of them now, and they were all scattered. Furthermore, they were carrying out more in-depth surveillance to achieve greater results. Of course, this required more effort to be invested. Regarding this, Zhu Zi naturally didn't skim on any effort at all. After this period of observation, Hui Yuhao discovered that the aerial surveillance SOL tools didn't just protect the military base below. They were also directed towards the Douling Empire. It wasn't exaggerated to claim that the Douling Empire's troops would be discovered as long as they came within 30 kilometers away of the base. What followed would likely be the attacks of the Phoenix SOL Engineer Legion directed towards them. Hui Yuhao was still in awe right now. He was very impressed by the professional standards of the Sun Moon Empire. In just half a month, the size of the base was already 10 times bigger than what it was when he was first here. There were also more people around too. He had not seen many of the large-scale SOL tools. All the SOL tools were in use, but the noise pollution they created wasn't very great. He was less than 3,000 meters in the sky right now, but no sound from below was audible at this altitude. Evidently, the Sun Moon Empire had done a great job at minimizing noise pollution. Although Hui Yuhao wasn't very experienced in mining rare metals, he could tell from the scale of their mining operations that the amount of reserves in the mines was definitely extraordinary. The Sun Moon Empire would not take much time to mine all the metals, given the scale of their mining operations. From the sky, everything was clear. There were more than 20 openings. Chunks of ore were constantly being transported out of these openings. This could become rare metals that were worth a lot, and could be used for the cause of SOL tools after they were purified. Hui Yuhao was also a SOL engineer. Even though he was very far away, he could still recognize some of the more special rare metals. Given the amount of rare metals that they had, it naturally meant that more and more weapons could be created by the Sun Moon Empire. Although the same thing would happen if he was the one with the rare metals, at least the Tang sect and Shrek were producing weapons to stop the war and resist invasions. Hui Yuhao's plan was very simple. First, he wanted to blind this Sun Moon Empire army before leading the Titan Snow Devil army to attack them. The Titan Snow Devil King was very unconvinced by this plan. In his opinion, the number of people here wasn't enough to pose any threat to the Titan Snow Devils. In a few attacks, everyone from the Sun Moon Empire would certainly be killed. However, Hui Yuhao warned him that there were many powerful weapons in the human world. Even if he was a soul beast, his life was still in danger. Titan Snow Devils were the most powerful species of savage beasts in the extreme north. They possessed incredibly terrifying strength. Their body was their strongest weapon and ability. Their strength and dominance were nightmares for their enemies. However, their bodies were very large, which made them easy targets for SOL tools. This was why Hui Yuhao was able to convince the Titan Snow Devil King under the name of the Snow Empress. He was here to help. He didn't want his entire species to be critically hurt because of him. If that was the case, he wouldn't be able to account to the Snow Empress either. After observing for some time, Hui Yuhao carefully retreated. He was too easily spotted in the day if he took any action. The results would be better at night. He silently returned to where the Titan Snow Devils were stationed, and tweaked their original plan slightly. The Titan Snow Devil King led his own species as well as the Ice Bear King to take a brief rest. The Snow Empress didn't permit the Ice Bear King to bring his own species with him. This was because the Ice Bear King was going to leave with them after this. If he brought his own people with him, he would be put in a difficult spot later on. What they needed now was to wait for night time. Time slowly passed, and the sky slowly turned dark. A figure silently flew from a pile of snow in the distance. More figures followed, and they slowly scattered. They were all slowly moving towards the front. They lightened their footsteps and tried not to make any sound as they moved forward. They were all advancing towards the same target. The figure in front of everyone else, who had a height of around 2 meters, wasn't Hu Yuhao. He was a burly man with an extremely muscular physique. When savage beasts reached a certain level, they could transform into the appearance of humans. The Titan Snow Devil King was no exception. However, soul beasts weren't willing to do so unless it was necessary. They could only unleash their greatest strength in their original state. Right now, they did this to better conceal themselves. In Hu Yuhao's plan, the Titan Snow Devil King definitely played the most important role. What about Hu Yuhao? Right now, he wasn't the only one flying towards the sky. There was a fatty beside him. If one wasn't observant enough, he would assume that it was a pig flying in the sky. Hu Yuhao was a little helpless as he asked the Ice Bear King, "Little Bai, why are you in this form? Our Tai looks more normal than you." That pig was indeed the Ice Bear King. Right now, the Ice Bear King was just like a ball-shaped human. He flew beside Hu Yuhao with his huge tummy. He could glide as much as he wanted. He wasn't wearing anything either. After all, he couldn't fit into Hu Yuhao's clothes. His flesh was all round, and even his head was ball-shaped. His look was extremely interesting. The Ice Bear King chuckled and said, "Grandpa, you don't know about this. When I first transformed into a human, I specially asked Mom. She said that she likes me in my chubby state. This was why I chose this look. I look cool. Look at my fat. It doesn't change how charming I taste." Hu Yuhao smacked his forehead. How can one describe taste as charming? However, he didn't say anything else. After all, he was already in this state. There was no way it could be changed. Under the effect of Hu Yuhao's imitation, they slowly concealed themselves and flew into the distance. The reason why he had surveilled the place earlier was because he needed to verify the surveillance radius of the Sun-Moon Empire's aerial surveillance Sol tools. Through his daytime surveillance, Hu Yuhao already had a plan in mind. Since the Sun-Moon Empire was mainly projecting their surveillance towards the Doling Empire, they could sneak in from the other side. In this way, they could get close. Once they took action, they could also breach the Sun-Moon Empire's base faster. Hu Yuhao led Little Bai higher and higher into the sky. Little Bai was a savage beast. While he looked plump, he was actually faster than Hu Yuhao after he started flying. However, he admired Hu Yuhao more and more right now. "Grandpa, your spiritual detection sharing is really fun. I can see so far even though it's so dark. Haha, take a look. Our Tai is still foolishly running. Look at him, he's so small. It's so fun. Quiet. Otherwise, I'll ask your mom to whack you." Hu Yuhao could only turn fierce against the babbling Little Bai. Little Bai immediately quieted down. After turning into a human, his eyes became a little shifty. He pleaded, "Grandpa, don't do that. I'll keep quiet." Hu Yuhao was a little amused, and stopped entertaining him. His spiritual detection wasn't just linked with Little Bai. It was also linked with the Titan Snow Devil King below. This aided his commandeering through his surveillance and detection. Right now, he was 1,000 meters from the ground. This was a huge burden on his spiritual power, given how far he had to unleash his spiritual detection sharing. Without his soul core, he would be unable to do it. Very soon, the Titan Snow Devil stopped under his command. They hid behind a mountain that was covered in snow. This mountain was a bit more than 20 kilometers from the Sun Moon Empire's base. It was also the limit of the aerial surveillance Sol tools. As the Titan Snow Devils were unable to become humans, they were being deployed further away at around the 25-kilometer mark. They crouched and silently waited for instructions. These Titan Snow Devils were easily commanded. They carried out the Titan Snow Devil King's instructions without any questions asked. This made Hui Yuhao's job easier. Right now, Hui Yuhao and Little Bai were already close to the boundary of the aerial surveillance Sol tools. Hui Yuhao smiled and said, "It'll depend on us next. Come, let's go." As he spoke, his figure flashed, and he sat on Little Bai's shoulders. In terms of cultivation, they were a far way off from each other. Such a tough job of rising into the sky was naturally easier for Little Bai. Little Bai kicked his legs in the sky. His action seemed very clumsy, but his body burst up like a huge cannon shell. He was so quick that he was even faster than the White Tiger Duke before. Hui Yuhao was seated very stably on his shoulders. He was like a nail that had been nailed to the Ice Bear King's shoulders. The scenery around him quickly flashed past, and the temperature dropped continuously. Their surroundings also became increasingly quieter. The low temperature didn't have any effect on them. After reaching an altitude of 4,000 meters, Little Bai started to slow down. Hui Yuhao watched what was happening below. He could only see glimpses of light from the Sun Moon Empire's base. "Little Bai, it's about time." "Right here," Hui Yuhao said. "All right." Little Bai acknowledged his words, and slowed further. He was able to rise with the Titan Snow Devil King in the extreme north, and the Snow Empress had no choice but to bring him away to protect the Titan Snow Devil King's rule. This showed how strong he was. It was just that the Snow Empress' presence made him seem very harmless. If someone actually took him as an easy target to bully, he would be sure to punish that person. Hui Yuhao smiled and said, "Little Bai, it's up to you now." "No problem. Let me show you how good I am." Little Bai screamed in delight. He and the Titan Snow Devil King seemed to have some kind of dislike for each other. In the past, they would always fight every time they saw each other. Even though he couldn't fight the Titan Snow Devil King this time because of the Snow Empress, the competitive mindset in him hadn't disappeared. This time, the Titan Snow Devil King was on the ground, while he was in the air. He was delighted. He even thought that Hui Yuhao was more on his side. In fact, Hui Yuhao had brought him into the air because he was more adept at controlling the elements, whereas the Titan Snow Devil King was physically stronger, and more suited for direct assaults. These were the only reasons. Hoo-hoo! Low-pitched whimpers started to resonate from Little Bai's mouth. His thick and chubby arms started to open up to either side. Following this, dim blue light started to emanate from his body. He also started to balloon in size. He was returning to his original form. He wanted to demonstrate his full abilities in front of Hui Yuhao. To do so, it was best that he was in his original form. The Ice Bear King glowed with an icy blue halo in the night sky. He was almost 30 meters tall, and his body was like a small mountain, but he still managed to remain adrift in mid-air. His eyes, which were extremely small earlier, started to expand along with his body. His pupils emanated dark blue light. These streaks of light flowed out from his eyes as if they were liquid. His immense soul power undulations started to slowly but steadily spread out. They were even viscous as they seeped from his body. Right now, he was above Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao could only sense the terrifying soul power undulations that the Ice Bear King released. Perhaps he wasn't as steady, firm, and powerful as Di Qian. However, the soul power undulations that he released right now were definitely much stronger than those of transcendent allure. Furthermore, he was very terrifying. He was like an impregnable, moving castle. The Ice Bear King roared. Following this, his icy blue soul power started to revolve around his body. He kept pouring out his soul power while the ice elements in the air started to gather towards him at an alarming speed. Only the position that Hui Yuhao was in wasn't affected at all. However, He managed to observe from his spiritual detection that there was a ball of blue light in front of the Ice Bear King's chest. This ball of blue light was in the form of a whirlpool. It had to be a soul core. Without a doubt, it had to be the soul core of the Ice Bear King. Compared to his own soul core, the Ice Bear King's soul core was much bigger. It was even located in his chest. As this huge soul core evolved, the Ice Bear King's own soul power seemed to pour out as if it were unlimited. The ice elements in the air were quickly strengthened. Hui Yuhao was astonished to see that some of the clouds far away started to drift towards them as the Ice Bear King released his soul power. After this, they turned into countless snowflakes that danced agitatedly around the Ice Bear King's immense figure. Roars reverberated continuously from the Ice Bear King. Slowly, a huge whirlpool formed from ice and snow appeared in the air. This whirlpool spun very quickly. The most terrifying thing was that it was expanding rapidly too. In just a matter of seconds, the area that the Ice Bear King controlled spanned more than 1,000 meters in diameter. Just like the Snow Empress had mentioned, all ice-type soul beasts were much stronger in the extreme north. This was applicable to the Ice Bear King too. If they were further south, the temperature of the air wouldn't be so low. If he wanted to do something like this, he would need to use at least 20% more soul power. The huge whirlpool was still expanding at a rapid speed. It went from 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters to 2,500 meters to 3,000 meters in diameter. If not for the fact that it was very dark now, and they were 4,500 meters up in the sky, such a terrifying whirlpool would have immediately been discovered. It was a pity that the Sun Moon Empire's aerial surveillance soul tools couldn't see anything at such an altitude. An altitude of 5,000 meters was threatening to all life. The Ice Bear King's roars slowly became stronger and stronger. His soul power was still being released at an increasing speed. The whirlpool appeared to be boundless by now. It was maintained at a constant speed, but its diameter slowly reached 4,000 meters, and then 5,000 meters. It was Hui Yuhao's first time seeing a savage beast unleashing its full abilities. It was extremely terrifying. If the Ice Bear King demonstrated such great abilities, how strong was Di Qian? If not for the fact that Elder Xian and Elder Mu had teamed up to fight Di Qian, Shrek Academy would have been destroyed. Soul beasts were indeed the same terrifying creatures that had once ruled the Dolor continent. The Ice Bear King had turned completely ice-blue. His originally white fur was like ice crystals now. His dominant aura was still getting stronger and stronger. However, the size of the whirlpool stopped growing when it reached a diameter of 5,000 meters. The only thing that changed was its speed. Under his control, it started to spin faster again. Slowly, sharp whizzing and piercing wind-blowing sounds started to resonate through the air. The strong sound waves made it seem as if the air were about to be torn apart. In addition, the temperature around the whirlpool started to fall significantly. The dancing snowflakes slowly turned into sharp ice flakes. Under the effect of the raging wind, they turned into terrifying, lethal weapons. The Ice Bear King roared in excitement. He lifted his bare palms before mimicking a pressing action. Its body started to shine with ice-blue light. Following this, the whirlpool deviated from its control and started to descend. As it descended, it started to expand again, as the Ice Bear King was no longer controlling it anymore. A diameter of 5,000 meters was just the start. A blizzard was about to come. Yes, this was the innate soul skill of the Ice Bear King, blizzard. It was a true blizzard. His innate soul skill was only perfected with the Snow Empress advice. Even someone as strong as the Titan Snow Devil King had to avoid the Ice Bear King's blizzard. The only alternative was to stop the Ice Bear King from unleashing the complete version of his blizzard. His blizzard raged in the air. Sharp, chilly winds and bone-piercing ice flakes were sweeping all across the air. Very soon, the area that the whirlpool covered was 10 times its original size. From above, Hui Yuhao could clearly see that this blizzard had actually covered the entire base, and even most of the surveillance soul tools. He's too strong. Although he had his own judgment of the Ice Bear King, he actually realized that the Ice Bear King was extremely powerful even though he was very simple-minded. The Ice Bear King smacked his palms against his chest and shouted in excitement. A portion of the raging ice elements in the air started to gather towards him, and he absorbed them into his body to replenish himself. "Grandpa, how is it?" "I'm quite good, right?" the Ice Bear King asked delightedly. Hu Yuhao nodded and said, "Great. We'll wait for the results now." Given the blizzard, even his spiritual detection was slightly ineffective. He needed time for the Ice Bear King's terrifying soul skill to be fully unleashed before deciding whether it was effective. As for the Sun Moon Empire, he could only pray for them. The Ice Bear King's blizzard was simply too powerful. Juzi was completing some administrative matters in the commander's tent when she noticed that the wind outside seemed to have gotten much stronger. The whizzing sounds of the wind became louder and louder. She even felt that the soul lamps in the tent were starting to flicker a little. Are there strong winds outside? She grabbed her coat from her seat and put it on before leaving the tent. When she first opened the curtains, she felt a gust of chilly wind sweep across her face. She shivered. It's so cold. The chilly winds whizzed. Depressions formed on the surfaces of all the tents. In the air, snowflakes danced and descended. In addition, the winds and snowflakes were hitting the base quicker and quicker. Why is there such a strong blizzard? Ever since she had arrived, Juzi had already thought that she had slowly adapted to the rigorous conditions. However, tonight's blizzard seemed to be a little too extreme. "Troopers! Here!" A member of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion rushed in front of her, ready to take orders. Juzi said, "Quick, help me pass down the order for everyone to be wary of the winds. If it gets too strong, use some heavy soul tools to press down the tents. Also, don't forget to keep warm." "Yes." The trooper quickly left. However, the winds were getting even stronger. Juzi returned to her tent and closed the curtains. Her tent was supported by soul tools. The warmer temperature inside made her heave a sigh of relief. It was inevitable for one to feel much more relaxed moving from a cold to a warmer place. However, she still furrowed her brow. There were many rare metal veins here, even though the conditions were very rigorous. This video will end here.